everyone. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon, local time, on the 12th of December, 2023. Around 9 o'clock this morning began our fourth week of this passage. And unfortunately, while we've had some good sailing over, I'll say, maybe the last week or so, we've also been in this very variable weather pattern again. This passage this year across the Indian Ocean has been by far the most frustrating ocean sailing I have ever done. A little bit earlier today, a couple hours ago, we had a little rain, wasn't really a squall, a little rain shower went through, a little bit of wind, a bunch of rain, washed the salt off the decks and the boat. So it refreshed things a little, which was nice. But as is typical, often once the squall passes, it leaves in its wake nothing. And not long thereafter, I've been trying to keep track of this here. We're not real close to the coast, but I went on my tide program and got the tides, the timing of the tides in Maputo, which is in Mozambique. It's 150 or so miles, maybe more than that, to, what would that be from here? About southwest, we'll say. And so that would be quite a bit of time difference between the tide, high and low tide there, and the tidal flow out here on the ocean. But the period seems to coincide, if I offset it for the distance, which is really a guesstimate mostly. And it seems like rather than the tide running, the tides running against the current, creating the lumpy bumpies, it would seem to be that it's whenever there's slack tide in the area where we're sailing, which means about once every 6 hours we get the lumpy, bumpy, choppy, chunkies. Not because of opposing currents, but because the tidal current stops. And any current that it generates goes into neutral. I know it seems weird to me, but that timing pattern seems to coincide. Anyway, right now we've just spent a little over an hour kind of drifting along with very little wind after that little rain shower went through, and getting bounced around like crazy in the lumpy, bumpy, choppy, chunkies, which have now gone away. The sea state is fairly regular again, but the wind is quite light, maybe 6-8 knots. We are still going with the south setting current. That's probably giving us a knot of boat speed. But our average speed is right now maybe 3 knots over the bottom. From noon yesterday until 8 o'clock this morning, which would be 20 hours, we made 80 miles. So that's a 4-knot average. Not exactly what I was expecting on this trip down here. I thought we'd have nice 10 to 20 knot northeaster monsoon winds blowing. Well, we didn't get those until nearly a week ago, and that was spotty. And it also seems to go through kind of a diurnal cycle, where sometimes the wind will start about east-southeast and slowly back around to just west of north. And then it'll slowly clock back to somewhere vaguely about northeast or east-northeast. Right now, that's about where it's blowing from, about the northeast, but very light. It's gray and overcast, which is okay because it keeps it from being very hot. So it's pleasantly cool, but very humid. Anyway, we just keep drifting along. We're down to under 100 miles to the next waypoint where we have to turn more southwest. And that'll be the last long leg, 330 miles. Will put us just outside of the entrance to Richards Bay, the harbor there. About at the end of that leg, it'll be about 15 miles to the entrance to Richards Bay. And I've given up trying to do any kind of forecast for how long it's going to take us to go anywhere because the conditions just are not consistent. One time we'd be roaring along at 6, 7 knots, touching 9 occasionally, which is when the current is really strong. And other times we'll be out here almost going nowhere, just drifting with the current, making maybe a knot, knot and a half. Or like now, where it's 6 knots of wind, maybe 7. I can't really run the mainsail because it will force the bow of the boat up into the wind, even in these light conditions, even just a double reefed main. And because I really need to carry the wind after the beam a fair amount to stay on the course line, it just blankets the head sails anyway, so it's rather pointless. Therefore, all we can really do is just keep going. I actually thought about running the motor for a little while when it was so lumpy, because it's so calm. But I've probably already used, I would estimate at least 80 to 85% of the diesel that I bought before we left Kalihi. And I probably used over 70% of that in the first week trying to get south. So I've been very judicious in my use of the motor since then, because obviously wanted to make sure I got enough to get into harbor at the end. I have my 40 liters of reserve here in the cockpit, which would give me about 30 hours of running time if I'm running the motor pretty slow. Not exactly sure how much is left. The starboard fuel tank is empty. I don't know exactly how much is left in the port tank. I'm just guesstimating based on how long the motor was running. It's looking like, here I go with my little forecast, it's looking like, unless things go horribly wrong here, sometime Saturday. Today's Tuesday, so sometime Saturday we should get to Richards Bay. Of course, we shall see. Anyway, this is the beginning of week 4. I originally thought, 1,800 miles, if we got good conditions, could possibly do that in 2 weeks. Well, we're a week past that, and probably going to be another 5 days past that. So bye for now. Have fun out there, folks. We are not. That's not so bad. Just annoying. Frustrating. For me, anyway. Until later. Bye-bye.